Hello, Devonport Camera Club. My name is Mark Bloathoft. I'm your judge for this monthly competition. I'm a professional photographer with over 30 years experience, and I've also judged for camera clubs for over 20 years. I certainly enjoy the process. I love photography. I live and breathe it, so to speak. So I really enjoy seeing the images from clubs that I'm able to judge for. Mostly I judge in person, but in this instance I'm creating a video for you fine folk, but I'm more than happy to jump on the Spirit and come over and visit one day. I also photograph for myself. I photograph professionally, and then I photograph as a hobby and as an interest. Nature and landscapes are what sort of interest me mostly, but I'm very versed in all genres as an interest, but also with some experience as well. All right, I digress. Let's get into your images, which I really enjoyed seeing. So we're starting with open colour. And what image do we have here to begin with? Where are we hiding? Oh, there we are. Very good. Excellent. What a great capture. There's a real intensity with our furry friend here. The eye contact is, waiting for a ball to be thrown, I'm assuming, or something's happening off camera, which is really nice. One thing I really enjoy in seeing photos is storytelling, and that can be done in so many different ways. And sometimes the story is really obvious. Sometimes you have to fill in the gaps, and I certainly like to do that. So love the intensity and the expression here on our furry friend and so forth. It's a little bit soft in the face of the dog here, which lets the image down a little bit. But he's obviously moving very quickly, and to capture that and freeze that moment is tricky. I understand that completely. I wonder whether maybe just coming a little bit closer as well. The fact that we've cut the legs off. Generally, either show. Either show the whole person or dog or creature, or whatever it happens to be, or maybe even coming closer. We don't really, this part of the image, in my opinion, is that, we don't really need to see all that. There's a nice bit of breathing room here, which works well, but maybe we could have cropped, just a little bit closer, just to really hone in on that intensity, which is really what the photo's about. My eye's drawn to there. I don't get anything out of this information down here. So, but look, I think there's a great feeling with the image that's been captured, and for that, I think it's great. Well done. Very nice leading lines, leading lines and parallels and all kinds of things that are going on here. So there's nice balance as well. The colours are really complementary as well. There's sort of warmish tones of the bridge, with the browns and so forth, which is very similar to the colour of the water. I'm not quite sure what's that saying about the water. The lines across here are nice. The lines down here, the reflections, the water's very still, obviously, as well, works well. Maybe just a little bit more foreground interest, a little bit more water. Particularly the blue could have, just helped balance it a little bit. It still works quite nicely. These lines are great. I suspect the photographer has flipped the image and maybe decided that flipping it gave it a better composition, and that's fine. I found that the text that's been reversed as a result of that is a little bit disconcerting. It's not a major thing. It's just something that just kind of distracted me, I suppose, from what the photo is about. But some really nice things that are going on there with the lines and the colours and the feeling and so forth as well. Yeah, nice. It looks like a lovely scene, lovely location to visit. We've got some nice lines, leading us sort of down the river and so forth. Some sort of foreground and mid and far elements in the water that are adding some interest as well. However, I think we're probably overall missing some sort of focal point, if you like, of what the image is about. It's a bit sort of busy and not really focusing on any one particular thing. The highlights are although they're exposed well, they kind of it's a little bit distracting and so forth. It doesn't maybe quite work as well as what it could. Maybe we could have focused on bringing a focal point out, maybe creating these a little bit bigger in the foreground. The ducks certainly could have added a bit of interest as well. Now, it's very easy for me to say all this, and actually to achieve that, is it's all about timing. It's all about the ability to do so as well. But the light's quite harsh, from the highlighted areas into the shaded areas, if you like. But yeah, look, some nice things going on there. Just lacking a little bit of direction and focus. Yeah, what an interesting subject, interesting composition. I really like the fact that our horse here is really sharp in the face. The eyes are spectacular. We've used a wider angle, which makes the head that little bit bigger. And then the interplay with the rider, and his expression and the joy that he's getting. Maybe a reenactor or something like that, I'm not quite sure. But that works quite well. I think to me it kind of has the potential to be like almost a timeless kind of image. And I wonder what it would have liked, what it may have looked like being black and white, just to give it that timeless feel. So that's a post-production potential, I suppose you could look at. There's a little bit of rope down here that sort of breaks the illusion. So the illusion to me is, that sort of timeless, that sort of moment in time and so forth. So we want to make sure that these things are considered. Some of the things in the background, maybe don't need to be there. So maybe by using using some photographic techniques to concentrate the focus here and blur everything out, with some selective focusing and good use of aperture choice and so forth, could have helped on the image that little bit more. But the elements that I've mentioned, that work nicely, do make for a pleasant image. So it's always interesting when we look at sometimes the big picture, the big scene, and I fall into this habit myself where we want to sort of take in the whole scene and the whole situation that we're seeing in front of us. But sometimes by zooming in and looking around us, we can concentrate on something that makes is interesting without seeing the whole thing. And this old bike here and its rustiness and the stories that it's got and so forth is certainly interesting. We've got some rusty elements there as well. I think a few things probably let the image down a little bit. I think some breathing room around the bottom of the wheel here maybe could have strengthened it a little bit, either coming closer, maybe zoom in on this part of the bike, or show maybe a little bit more room around the wheel and so forth. Some of these things up here are somewhat distracting. They're not really supporting the story. The story is the bike, the rustiness, sort of, and the old wood sort of thing here, whatever that may happen to be, and a little bit that here. But these things up here, tend to probably detract a little bit from what the image is about. So, just maybe with some alternate cropping in camera, or post, I suppose. But using again an aperture or settings that could, just throw things out of focus and concentrate on what we need to see and what the image is about. Another image here of a horse and its rider. Wonderfully focused, all in the right place. So beautiful dress here. Of the rider. all these straps and so forth, all add interest and certainly hold my attention. So, little things like I mentioned before in the other shot, the rope here, we don't need that in the photo. These things in the background aren't really a part of the story. This power line or whatever that happens to be is probably a little bit distracting. So maybe just, thinking about, where... two things, where you're positioned and what the camera sees to, maybe isolate some of these things. Now, this could have been at some sort of public show or something like that, and maybe, you've done well to not have all other people and other riders and so forth. But just these little things here, probably just to take away, for me at least, what the image is about and so forth. But yes, some nice things going on, and great subject matter too. Yeah, love autumn. Autumn's fantastic. It certainly looks like a place to visit and to be enthralled by. With the scale of these trees and the colour of these leaves and all the other colours throughout. The blue in the sky, the interplay of the colours is really nice. The colours and the textures all certainly add interest as well. There's a little bit of sort of post-production work, some cloning and some strange artefacts that are sort of a little bit distracting, to be honest. I'm not quite sure what's happening there. Some sort of post-production that hasn't quite maybe gone right. The highlights, although they're well exposed, they're on the borderline of being a little bit distracting and sort of can distract a little bit, I suppose. There's also a bit of a lean with the trees. Now, if that's happening in nature, so be it, that's fine, but maybe it's the way the camera is being held. I'm not quite sure. So just a few things there that are just detracting a little bit. I think, what I like to see generally in strong images, there's no distractions. Things are all in line and in place to help and support what the image is about. And look, we've got good composition. These two trees here frame quite nicely with the other big trees in the back, and this sort of hero tree here is certainly in the right place. So some things that are working, but some things maybe just to consider that detract a little bit from the power of the image. The image certainly held my attention. There's a lot going on that's worthy of a look and concentration. The great saw there, rust in peace, and all these elements, all the cars and the part of the car and the trucks and all these little toy trucks certainly add interest. The archway there is nicely framed, and we're a bit looser. This to me is what the image is about, all this business here. But we've chosen to show that, which I think is a nice framing element. This little bit here is probably distracting a little bit. Maybe we could have cropped that out, come a little bit closer, maybe forgotten about the arch, maybe move forward a little bit or something like that. This bush here is probably just taking a little bit away as well. But I appreciate what the photographer's done and framed and captured the image in a way that certainly has held my interest in what the photo is about and what are the elements that have been captured. Yeah, what a stunning location. Beautiful hills, beautiful roads. Obviously the lighting is quite sensational as well, the reflections and so forth. Compositionally done very, very nicely. The shoreline, the reflections are fantastic. The beautiful sort of clouds here in the foreground, where maybe we could have even shown maybe some more, just to have a little bit more compositionally a stronger sort of foreground interest there. Photographed at the right time, if you like, sort of either early morning or late evening with those beautiful, warm, traditional sunrise colours. I think, for me at least, there's probably a little excess saturation. I think, maybe just bringing the saturation down a little bit. It's sort of gone a little bit nuclear, a little bit sort of almost unnatural. And if that was the intent, well, that's completely fine. That's just a thought process that maybe if we were just a little bit more natural with the colours, the image could be even stronger. But it's sharp throughout, or it's sharp in the areas that need it. So that's really done the beautiful texture here on the hills and so forth. So there's a lot of things that are certainly working in the image's favour. But maybe just in the post-production side of it, just thinking about the saturation levels could improve the image even more. All right, so now we go into the acceptances of open colour. So let's have a little look here. Yeah, what a wonderful location. Beautiful lighthouse. Framed nicely with these remnants of maybe what was a gate or a fence or something like that. I'm not quite sure. So there's been thought put into the placement and the composition of those elements. The sky is wonderful and sort of dark and stormy and so forth, and sort of weather that I imagine is why the lighthouse is there, to warn those wary sailors of the cliffs and the reefs and so forth close by. So we're sharp, throughout as well. Everything's quite sharp and so forth. Maybe just in post just a little bit more contrast, but I think that's just a personal thing. I think there's definitely some interest with all the elements that I've mentioned that make for a very pleasing image. So well done. Beautiful colours, very striking. These are wonderful flowers to photograph. We've got sort of good scale of these larger ones up the front, sort of moving into the medium-sized ones, and then sort of goes on and on with all the other flowers in the background, and sort of that nice cascading of size and so forth. Nice line over here, nice little line here in the background there. Beautiful light on the sort of grassy areas there as well. I think. This flower here is looking a bit sad. If we maybe had cropped from there to the right or something like that, just to really concentrate on those really nice flowers there, just to really show them off as nature intended. I mean, that's a small thing. It's not a big thing. It's not a deal breaker. Far from it. There's definitely some really nice things that are going on in this image, and nice light and so forth as well. Just be mindful of some of the brighter areas. They can be a little bit distracting. It's obviously fairly low side light, but look, there's some wonderful things that are going on there, and it would have been a wonderful place to visit and experience. So well done. Yeah, wonderful. Beautiful hill, beautiful lines, wonderful little lighthouse there placed up on that precarious little sort of bit there, sort of leading down to these smaller ones. So it's really, nice stuff going up there. There's a house up there as well, or some sort of building. Spectacular views, no doubt. Nice bit of foreground interest with the rocks. Good choice of shutter speed, where we've just slowed it down and sort of blurred the water nicely, which has given it a nice sort of feeling. Beautiful colours in the clouds there, which is really nice as well. The highlights here are probably a little bit distracting. Maybe we could have just brought down the highlights just that little bit. It's a shame that the light that it's not quite out. It's obviously the sun's behind the clouds. If the sun, I'm assuming the sun's over here on the left somewhere, but if that was kind of out smashing all these hills and stuff, it could have even been a more powerful image. But we can't always control those elements when we're photographing in nature. I like the positioning of the rocks over here on the right and the left. Maybe just a little bit more room, just a little bit more breathing room around these rocks Could have just given it a little bit more sort of space, if you like. But yeah, some really nice things that are going on in this image. It would have been really nice to have been there to experience it, at this time of day. So well done. Some really nice things going on with this image. The expression here on the rider, she's just living her best life and having a great time doing so. The beautiful horse here, the striking colours, the detail, the focus is really nice throughout all the area that it needs it. Beautiful positioned horizon. I think there's been some thought process by the photographer. No doubt in the capturing component of taking the image, but also probably in post-production as well. I think in nature, sort of landscapey nature kind of images, generally, the horizon should always be level, so to speak, and so we've done a great job in that regard. Beautiful sort of lines here, of the water, the sand, and then the rider and the horse, of course. This little guy here is probably a bit too close to the edge of frame. Maybe just a little bit room underneath, or maybe in camera, crop it out, or even in post. I'm probably a little bit of a purist. I don't tend to clone things out unless they're dust spots, to be honest, but that's just me. There's a place for it, and it's a tool, and we should all embrace the tools that photography has and we can have access to. That's a tiny little thing, really. My eye's drawn to the rider, to the horse, to the scene, but eventually it will come to these little things like that can be maybe seen as being distracting and taking away from what the image is about. But again, a small thing. There's some, lots of strength in the image that makes it, work as an image. So, great capture. Well done. Yeah, just stunning. Beautiful, nature at its best, with these wonderful flowers and the plumage and so forth, the beautiful striking blues all throughout. The photographer's got some great contrast and colours, throughout. These feathers are fantastic. The detail, the focus is all where it needs to be. It's just a shame that our feathered friend didn't play ball and just turn his head slightly, just a bit more of a profile. Sort of this area here sort of gets lost a little bit. But if we had more of that profile to see, maybe a bit more of the side of the face, and the eye and so forth, with the beak a little bit more profiled. But the model didn't want to play ball. So, but look, there's wonderful things going on. Wonderful placement of these feathers and the stunningness of them. We could have shown the whole bird in, all the plumage and so forth. But I think coming in and zooming in, where we've done so, has certainly made for a really interesting photo. Very nice. Yeah, look at that, nature's ferocity, nature's display. What a fantastic capture, of this fantastic lightning going out there. That's full on. We've got stars and we've got the moon and so forth as well. It's kind of interesting. The foreground here of the sheds and the buildings and so forth can kind of work in one or two ways, either being somewhat distracting, or being a part of it. So I think that's probably up to the viewer. It's up to the photographer. I'm probably leaning on a little bit towards it's probably a bit distracting. But there's no way that you could necessarily have controlled that you were there. that's where the lightnings happen. Point the camera and just kind of go for it. Or maybe there was a very deliberate intention in having those buildings, in the foreground, and and if that's what the photographer wanted, that's obviously completely fine. But yeah, fantastic, and the exposure, is spot on throughout those areas there, and all the different sort of gradients of lightness and darkness throughout the clouds has been done really well. And as I said, the stars and the moon are all nicely done. Good work. Yeah, really nice reflection captured here. The detail throughout the building itself, excuse me, and all the different gradients of the light, has been captured beautifully in the background buildings there, the lights and the neons and so forth, and the stillness of the water has allowed for a really nice reflection. There's quite a bit of sky up there, and maybe a little bit closer, cropped a little bit closer, or photographing just that moment. It's always hard to time, but when the lights first turn on, maybe there's still a little bit of color in the sky, rather than having the sky sort of almost could be completely black. Just the last sort of moments of color from the sunrise or the sunset can be something to aim for when photographing cities. And the timing of that may not work, but that's something that can strengthen the image as well. Like if we had color in the sky, and then that reflection in there as well, could have made for a stronger image. But look, some great things that are happening and going on with the image, which certainly warrants my eye in the image and being held there for a period of time. Yeah, what a wonderful gift that nature can give us in all its many, many ways. And this flower here is certainly no exception. I love the positioning here is really nice, very pleasing composition, sort of on that sort of left third, which works nicely. There's sort of the backlight element, the light highlighting the elements of the feathers, and the flower itself is really, really nice. Long lens, shallow depth of field, thrown our background out of focus, so we're minimizing those distractions, the things that take away from the image, and the color interplay in the back there is actually quite nice. But the way that there's a darker area here, behind this part of the flower, which is really nice, leading to a lighter, leading to sort of some different colors, and sort of interplayed nicely over here as well. So, and that could have been a very intentional thing by the photographer to move the camera left or right, or position him or herself to enable that capture. And the little spider webs, add that little bit of sort of spark to the image to add, or to hold my eye, I should say. I think that's a really nice touch. Great work, well done. All right, now we go into the highly commended section. Yeah, another wonderful study of flowers. I've photographed a few flowers in my time, but not a whole lot. But I am definitely taken by nature and its perfection in its design. It's quite amazing to see. I think sometimes we get sort of very focused on the big picture of things, and sometimes it's great to stop, to pause and look at the little things. And I think photography is such a wonderful excuse to do that. To take us out and see things and capture things that a lot of people that aren't photographers sometimes miss. So I think we're very privileged. But I'm digressing a little bit. But the image itself is really nice. It's got a nice, it's got a very soft feel to the image. The light is very soft. It's very sort of calm as well. Nice placement of all the elements of the flower there, with this little bit here, looking at us, which is great. Focus perfectly all throughout. Again, a long lens appears to be used to throwing the background out of focus. Maybe we could have thrown the background out of focus a little bit more. Some of these little dark areas are, maybe a little bit distracting. Maybe a little bit more softness throughout could have even strengthened the image a lot, even more so. But look, there's some wonderful elements there that make for a really pleasing image. So well done. Yeah, what a capture. I dare take it the photographer really has a handle on what they're doing, and all the technical parts of photography. Particularly in this instance, shutter speed. Shutter speed is king, with action and fast-moving objects and so forth, and definitely the shutter speed, the correct one, has been used. There's no movement that I can see, at least, with our horse or rider at all. And the grace and the perfection, of the ride seems to have been captured. I'm not a horse person. I don't know anything about equestrian, but I can appreciate, the skill involved from the rider, and I think the photographer has captured that. I really like the positioning of the head here. There's just like a slither, and then the nose would have been behind this little fence. So that's really, really well timed. There's great concentration on the rider, and the sort of the airborne element of the horse is fantastic as well. A few little things in the background are probably a little bit distracting, but my eye is definitely held on the action, on the frozen moment of time. Fantastic, well done. Love the the color interplay here. The simple black background, the gold, yellow, and the black of our dragonfly here against the black is really nice. Full credit to the photographer who set up a studio and had the dragonfly flying around the studio. Although maybe it's a dragonfly that's not flying, it's just there on display. But that doesn't really matter. The image is a great one. The diagonals here of the wings is fantastic. The diagonals here across the body is also very pleasing as well. We lose a little bit of detail down here on this wing down here. Maybe that couldn't have been helped. I'm not quite sure. And that's a really minor thing, really. But yeah, the clarity, the colour, the placement all works and makes for a great shot. Well done. One of the first things that struck me with this image is just the focus, just the clarity in the feathers and the detail. It's all really, really nicely captured. There's a nice bit of interplay here with the eye to us, the viewer. A little bit cautious, a little bit wary. What are you doing? Why are you pointing that thing at me? I'm just trying to eat some lunch. Leave me alone. So that, all done really nicely. And the interplay with the bird and this red feather over here, red flower in particular, works quite nicely. Maybe if the bird was a little bit left and and this flower was a little bit left as well, could have even strengthened the composition even more. Some of these branches, probably are a little bit distracting, and maybe, selecting an aperture to really, keep the sharpness and the focus on the bird, of course, which is, vitally important, but just throwing that background out a little bit more. But elements in the photo that certainly, make it for a very pleasing image. I've done a tiny bit of bird photography, and I know how difficult it is. They're very flighty. They move very, very quickly. And there's patience. There's a high level of understanding of photographic techniques as well, which we can work for the success or the failure of an image. But we've done well here, so good work. Yeah, very striking. There's a few things. held my attention initially, just the colours, the gold and the blue and so forth, and the great sky. And then, of course, what appears to me, to be sort of frozen sort of water on top of the lake here, which is just quite spectacular. The lines and the reflections here are really nice. The clouds and the drama in there also work really nicely as well. And as much as I love the colours in this tree bush here, I either probably, to be honest, would like to see maybe a little bit more, or maybe even less. Maybe none of it. I'm not sure if the opportunity for the photographer was to step a bit left and just really concentrate on the water and the reflection and the hill and the sky. I wonder whether that was there as an opportunity. So for me, more or less of that bush there. Again, I've said this a few times. All elements should be working together. And this is just my opinion. I mean, the photographer may be very happy with that, and that's completely fine if that's the case. I always like to look at alternatives. Alternatives when I'm shooting, alternatives of where I'm positioned, of what I see through the camera. And just covering myself and taking different shots and really concentrating on what I see through the camera, but also what I see on the back of the camera as well. And while you're there, it's important to review and look at options and so forth as well. It doesn't mean you have to run around and take 100 photos and hope that you've got it. I think what do they say? Spray and pray. I think we can probably take a note out of analog photographers. If you were an analog photographer back in the day, or even if you are now, there's an economy in the way that you photograph, and you're kind of forced to really slow down and think and so forth. And I think that, there's elements of that I think are applicable. But anyway, great image, sharp throughout, beautiful colours. All the things that I've mentioned, make for an interesting photo. So well done. Yeah, wonderful. There's beautiful sharpness throughout. These lines are really nice. The rocks and so forth, and this guy here and this guy here. The slow shutter speed, which has slowed the water down, giving us this beautiful sort of traditional waterfall effect. And the water and the rocks, and it's all very inviting. It looks like a really wonderful place to visit. This foreground rock here, maybe again, maybe just a bit of breathing room, just a bit more room. Either have it in or have it out. I think if you're going to have it in, show more of it as an element of composition, and maybe this guy here as well. I don't know how much more leads off to the right, but maybe just a little bit more there. But focus beautifully from here all the way to the foreground. A bit of movement in the water here. The rocks are a bit mysterious because they're what's in the water, how cold is it, all those kind of things. But some really nice elements in the image that hold my attention, really sort of make me think I'd love to visit this place. And I think that's one of the challenges with photography, and one of the things to strive towards is you're there, you're experiencing, and your senses are in overdrive. You're seeing, you're hearing, you're feeling. And how do you translate that into a photograph and give the person that's looking at a sense of what you went through? And I think if you do that, you're there. You will make strong images if you can somehow capture those sensations and those feelings and senses that you've experienced. Yeah, wonderful. It's nice to see. I think with a lot of star images, night images and so forth of the night sky, there's a big infatuation on the Milky Way, and rightly so. It's stunning and it's beautiful. But here I'm not an astrologer, far from it. But here it just seems to be a beautiful photo of the night sky and the wonderful stars that are in the heavens, so to speak. without sort of the cliche capture, I suppose. It's so I appreciate that. I've photographed the night sky a few times, and far from mastering it. But again, it's wonderful to be out and photographing things that most people would be shying away from or experiencing, and being home tucked away inside with the heater on. So I think it's got that sense of the night and the mysteries of it as well. I really like the framing elements of the sky. It's not just pure sky. We've got foreground interest here with the trees and the tree over here on the right, and the sort of just the tickle of the branches over here on the left. Compositionally, I think that actually works really, really nicely. With obviously high ISO and so forth, we do tend to get very noisy. So there is a little bit of noise over here, and it's kind of a bit muddy. Maybe we don't need to see information in this area here. Maybe just cranking those blacks up a little bit, and get rid of the muddiness of it, I think would be probably my suggestion, just to give that a little bit more punch, if you like. But I love the sort of the brown, warm, yellow tones throughout the sky as well. Some great elements there. Well done. Yeah, beautiful. Again, sort of nature sort of performing its dance of showing off the spectacular parts of what it can produce. The striking, beautiful colours, the reds and so forth. The detail in the veins of the petal there are quite stunning and really, really nice. It's beautiful yellow, hot reds, hot yellows. It's maybe a little bit hot, maybe just to bring those highlights down just that little bit. But I like the juxtaposition between the light smashing on the flower and not in the background, and how dark it is. So I suppose, these elements in the background, this is probably just a question to, for the audience. Are they distracting? Could we have, brought them down or repositioned them, by composition in camera, just to really concentrate, on the flower itself. Some of these little green things over here are quite nice. I don't mind them, but some of these guys over here are just that little bit distracting. Maybe we could have cropped in a little bit closer, just to concentrate on all this fantasticness, if that's such a word. But that's really striking. So where does our eye go firstly? How long does it stay there? And if it goes to other elements of the image, will it come back, or will those other elements take the eye away and, lead it out? I think that's always a good exercise. Where does the eye first go? Where does it go to? And does it ultimately come back to the main source of interest? But very interesting capture and some beautiful stuff, as mentioned. All right, now we move over to the merits. Assuming that this is more than one image in the merit section here, let's have a little look. Starting with this image here, beautiful colours, beautiful interplay of the green in the background and the red in the front. Just love these the starkness and the punch. So I imagine that that's somewhat of what nature's been has shown here, and maybe a little bit of saturation's kicked in as well. But whatever the case, it works. These dark green bits and pieces in the background, and the good use of the depth of field, the long lens, has allowed that softness in the background, which is, for the most part, reduce the distractions, if you like. These highlights here probably detract a little bit. So maybe just, playing with that in post-production, if possible. Would have strengthened the image even more, but I just, my eyes is in these areas here, and all these things, for the most part, are complementary and make for a beautiful image, so well done. This is really nice. I'll just go to the. Hopefully, I can go backwards. So Hawley Beach ICM. So intentional camera movement, and then I love this bit here on the end. Well, I love it. Yeah, look, it's a great shot, and it's kind of interesting. I think it's. I really like to see, some what's the word? Sort of experimentation, some being daring, trying some different things, particularly within camera clubs. Camera clubs can be, traditionally a little bit sort of conservative. So it's nice to see some daring, risque images, being put forward. So well done. There's an abstract feel to the image. We know what's going on, but there's definitely a abstract feel to it. Beautiful foreground of this, the orange here of the rocks, arguably. These nice lines of the waves all work really nicely. And then we've got the, sort of the land over here, a slither of what looks like to be the sand, and then of course the, the greenery and so forth, some hills, and then the sky. Skies are probably blown out a little bit. Maybe bring the highlights down a little bit. But yeah, look, some nice elements that there compositionally, things are working nicely together to make for a great image. So well done. Yeah, wonderful. Getting two little feathered friends in together. They look like maybe a couple, and they're just doing their things. They're positioned beautifully. This nice diagonal of the branch that they're on is really, really nice, beautifully sharp all in the right spots. So very, very busy background. So maybe we could have just thrown that out of focus a little bit more. And some of the highlights are probably a little bit distracting as well. Maybe if we're able to in post, bring down the highlights or paint in, some exposure just to bring that down. And maybe in camera, just either a longer lens or a shallower depth of field to, throw that background out of focus. But, I appreciate how hard it is, with these birds and how quick they can fly and focusing and the trickiness of that. But yeah, beautiful. Some beautiful elements as discussed with composition and so forth, subject matter and focus all work well and make for a nice image. So well done. Alrighty, and that brings us to the final section of Open Colour. In honours. Wow, what a shot. Fantastic. Really shows a good grasp technically, aesthetically, compositionally, probably an understanding of birds as well and so forth as well. Really nice. Beautifully focused, beautifully sharp, good contrast, beautiful colours throughout our bird here. And the fact that we've sometimes with bird photography they're just posing, but here we've actually got something happening. Sort of getting our morning meal or snack or whatever it might happen to be, and just the way the photographer's captured that action is fantastic. The water droplets that have been captured by the splashing of arguably what could have been a bit of a tussle. Works really, really well. So, great choice of shutter speed. Great use of the long lens, which has, thrown our foreground out of focus nicely and thrown our background out of focus nicely as well. There's sort of the line here of the blue, the bird, the rocks, and then the foreground are really nice. I really appreciate, too, the very low angle, what appears to be a low angle where the photographer's shooting actually quite low. That's it certainly, adds interest. A worthy honours recipient, so well done to the maker. And I might seem to have a bit of a bias towards bird photography tonight, but this is wonderful. This is really, really, really nice. It's this image held my attention for when I judge, I always go through the images multiple times, and sort of, really sort of take in what the photographers captured and or created. And this is really nice. And one of the things that really makes it stand out is the reflection. The reflection really, really makes it. It's definitely a worthy recipient of honours. Focus, here is fantastic. Slither of this information here is also in focus, and the green's very complementary to the browns within the scene. This nice little sort of line of the greenery up the top here is really positioned nicely. So we've got the greenery, the water, beautiful sort of ripple effect here, which is expanding out. It's just really, really nice as well. And then, of course, this magical reflection as well. Really good stuff. Very worthy recipient of an honours in the open colour tonight. So well done to the maker. All right, that is it for colour. So now we are open monochrome. Let's have a look. Where are we? There's a black screen, and now we have a black and white shot. Fantastic. Alrighty, just bear with me. I'm just looking at something else while I'm here in the background. Wonderful placement. Definitely in the right position here on sort of the third. Nice bit of breathing room over here. Positioned beautifully, with this part of an old jetty or something like that maybe. Positioned long lens. Square crop's nice. I really like the square crop. In the full frame there would have been probably a lot of information above the head that was unnecessary, so the photographers made a decision to crop in nice and close. For me, it probably just lacks a little bit of contrast. I like the monochrome, the black and white conversion and so forth. But to me, just maybe just a little bit more contrast. We sort of our blacks and white are all kind of somewhat in the middle. I think some blacks could afford to be a little bit blacker, and some of the whites in particular could have been maybe a little bit more white and bright. But look, some wonderful things that are going on there with this image. Yeah, wonderful. The image is called Dandelion Movement, and for something that's sort of stuck in the ground, it's moving pretty fast. I really like what's happened here. If I was in the club rooms, I would certainly ask if the photographer was there. What the technique was and how this was achieved. It's really interesting. And the black and white works well. Just the one thing that really probably doesn't need to be there is this little guy here. And to me, I think that's a dust spot. It looks like a traditional dust spot. It's quite prominent, and I think if possible, that should be removed. And the image would probably be strengthened a little bit more. Maybe there's a little bit of probably maybe a little bit more contrast. Maybe the whites could be a bit brighter. It's kind of a little bit muddy in this area here. So maybe just a little bit more contrast without blowing out too much as well. But I like the boldness, the uniqueness of the image. So there's some elements that are working very nicely. So well done. Yeah, striking. Beautiful mountains. They're steep, they're rugged, and they're focused beautifully as well. I'm always, the photographic techniques and photographic components of, sharp and all that kind of stuff. It's important. It's not the be all and end all though. But here it's actually quite striking. But the storytelling component and the wow factor and the uniqueness of an image is certainly, something that I'm looking for initially. The black and white conversion is really nice. The blue, it's got some nice tonality to it as well. I've got a bit of a love-hate relationship with the boats. In one sense, they give me a sense of scale, which I think is important. In another sense, they're kind of a little bit distracting. To me, the image is about nature. and I want to see and concentrate on that nature. But obviously we have these boats here in the foreground, so maybe we could have showed more of the boats, more of the sort of foreground land in front there as well, just a little bit more as a framing element down the bottom maybe, or just got rid of it completely. If you just look at the image from above my cursor up, that in itself could have made for an image worthy of the subject matter. So as I said, I have a bit of a love-hate relationship with the boat, so more or less in or out is probably what I would say. Yeah, what a beautiful little fella. Great detail and focus in all the the eye and all the fur around the face here. Very drastic drop off, which is certainly really pleasing. And we've got not quite a square crop, but a bit of a square crop there, which is nice. I think maybe positioning our friend a little bit more to the left with a little bit more breathing room over on this side could have strengthened the image a little bit. Yeah, maybe. That's just a sort of a gut feeling. I like the positioning of the head down. It gives a sort of a bit of a somber, serious kind of feel. Which is actually quite nice, I mean, any emotion that is evoked through a photo is great in my opinion. It doesn't have to be happy and fluffy and cheery. We can have all kinds of different moods and so forth. I think maybe the black and white conversion I think is really nice. It gives it a timeless, neutral feel, which is nice. Maybe just a little bit more contrast. It's bordering on being maybe a little bit flat. Just bring up the contrast between the dark to the lightest points, but some elements that are certainly really nice and it shows good photographic techniques on the photographer's behalf. So well done. All right, we move over to the black and white or open monochrome acceptances. So let's have a little look at these images here. Yeah, black and white's lovely. It's a you either chase the light, morning and evening is obviously where the warmer tones and the warmer light are, particularly from a landscape point of view. But when you can't do that, then just when in doubt, go black and white. It has its place, absolutely. And this is a great image, beautiful leading lines all the way across the perspective, and so all sort of pointing to this area over here, nicely balanced with the actual train itself. Focus is spot on all the way through. It's all really, really nice. I think the bin. You've heard me say it a few times tonight. Compositionally, I think sometimes there's room for cutting things in half and all that kind of. I sort of. I think there's photographic rules and guidelines. I don't really like to call them rules because they can be broken and should be broken. But I just think, just give the bin a bit more room. Either get rid of it or show a little bit more room around it. It's kind of just a little thing. Other than that, there's some great elements that are working nicely for a good, strong black and white. So, yeah, well done. Fantastic. My eye goes straight to this young lass's face, and she's got a very pleasant expression. It's very sort of just very neutral with a slight hint of joy and happiness, which is really lovely. I love the old world feel to the image, and the title of the image is Lemonade Anyone, and so you can see then that they have a lemonade store here with all their bits and pieces, and we've got as I said, an old world feel to it, with the black and white, but also the way that they're dressed as well. So just a few little things that maybe detract a little bit from the image. I suppose the reflection of this sign here is a small thing, but maybe just moving camera left a little bit could have moved that a little bit as well. Our second person selling here, unfortunately, it looks as though she's got a mid blink, which is not great, unfortunately. And this person here is probably a little bit distracting as well. So maybe just some placement options of maybe moving the camera a bit left or right. But, whether the photographer asked this girl to look or whether it was just a candid moment, we have microseconds to make these choices, and everything I'm talking about has to either happen very, very quickly or may not be able to be duplicated. Having said that, the first thing that my eye is brought to is this young lady here and all these elements, and overall the image works quite nicely, so well done. Yeah, very nice. This image is looking through the window, and of course the window leads our eye to this fantastic old vehicle here, which is probably maybe a little bit small in the frame. I love texture and lines and shapes, and we've got all this here around the window. But I just wonder whether we can. I'm wanting to see a little bit more of the car, and maybe me wanting to see that is actually why the image is actually working really well, because I'm wanting it, but I can't. Whether we could have done something else, I'm not quite sure. But I think the image does work. There's no question. The repetition of all the lines here, and they're broken up by that little guy up here, actually works quite nicely. They're black and white, from sort of the blacks to the whites and all the mid-tones and so forth. Actually works really well. I think the photographer's captured the tones throughout the image really nicely, and a good conversion to black and white, and sharpness and all that kind of thing is nice as well. So yeah, good work. Very pleasant capture. Of this young lass here. She's got a traditional headgear on, very pleasant neutral expression. Some just nice tones throughout as well. It's almost high key to a point. It's quite bright in the background there. So we could have maybe have gone even brighter with the background and got rid of some of these little areas here. But they're out of focus. They're not really detracting too much. I think it's a nice capture. It's a simple image. We've got nice interplay, nice sort of warmish expression which has been captured, which I think is certainly makes for a pleasing image. So this image, let me just have a look here. So rust never sleeps. The texture and the feel of the image is really nice. We've got some spider webs over here, but the rust and the weatherness and the oldness and whatever else. I'm sure this was a classic in its day, and just being sort of left to fall apart. The lines are interesting. The diagonal sort of play of that's interesting. We could have gone a bit more square on and got everything sort of very symmetrical to the top of the frame and so forth. But I think it works. The interplay of the the circle over here and the circle here is quite nice. Maybe we could have just moved everything a little bit to the left to show a little bit more of that as sort of a balancing compositional component to our car badge. Maybe something to have considered. The black and white conversion is nice. There's good detail throughout. There's focus is good. A few little highlights here and there that maybe could have been brought down a little bit, but I think we've actually overall done pretty well. There you go. Very classic Tasmanian iconic location, and nice to see in black and white too. I think that actually works quite nicely. A little bit of movement. Maybe some sort of little bit of wind has chopped up the water a bit, which has added a bit of interest. The clouds and the sky are actually all quite nice. Just we haven't pushed it too hard, but you can start to see a little bit of a halo effect, which is normally a sign of going a bit too hard with our processing, but I think it's probably just borderline. The people add compositionally probably they're positioned reasonably well. There's a lone person over here, I think, by the looks of it. But we've got the balance of our iconic hills here going up nicely to there. You've got the boat shed and this foreground rock. So everything's positioned quite nicely. There's a nice bit of interplay with all those things. And then, the added interest of the people. I think for some people they'd say, oh, that's just distracting and shouldn't be there. For other people, they might say, oh, it adds a bit of interest. To me, it adds a bit of scale. In particular, the couple there work quite nicely from my point of view. So look here, a nice image captured and processed, quite well. So well done. All right, we are into the highly commended section of the open monochrome. So let's have a little look here. All right. So another dandelion image. Beautifully processed. I really like the there's really nice strong contrast in the main head of our dandelion here, which I really like. There's a gentle graduation from around to black all the way throughout. Actually, I would be nice to see this as a print. I think it would actually print really nicely. Nicely positioned as well, sort of on the right third, just slightly off center to the right, which is quite pleasing as well. Yeah, really nice, really simple. But powerful. Yeah, very nice. The image is called Honey Collection Time. So obviously we've got the smoke here that would be used, to go into the hive and so forth. That doesn't really matter though. For this image here, just beautiful placement of the smoke and so forth, and the light. Coming, arguably sort of from behind the smoke, works really well. The background is really interesting as well. Just little bit of shape and texture, if you like, but it's complementing our foreground interest, and it's not distracting at all. I really like the brave sort of composition of just coming in fairly close to the top of the thing here, whatever it's called. Clearly I don't have a beehive, but just the composition's really nice. I really appreciate what the photographer's done, and the capture of the smoke and the movement and so forth is all very, very nice. Maybe some of the highlights are a little bit hot. Maybe we could have brought them down a little bit, but the contrast generally throughout works well. So good stuff. I like. Oh goodness, just bumped the microphone. Sorry about that. This is great. There's a real nice interplay with the dog, and in my mind, the mirror. He's sort of saying, "Oh, geez, I didn't, do my makeup or brush my hair or something like that." But the title of the image is kind of a little bit towards indicating what the story is about, or what the image is about. So the image is called Waiting. So I think there's just a little bit of apprehension and anxiousness, if you like, of waiting for the owner to come back. The window's up. Maybe it's 40 degrees. Maybe the dog's getting a bit hot. Who knows? The line here of the lines of the car door work really nicely, and the little line down there. We could have come in maybe a little bit closer, but I actually like the negative space and the elements that are actually framing the image quite nicely. But the fur and the detail and the clarity throughout actually works well. But the expression here on the face has been really well captured. So well done. All right. And I think our last section for the evening in open monochrome are the merits. So let's have a little look here. No, we've got honours. What am I talking about? Okay, well, let's have a look one thing at a time, hey? Yeah, wow, what a capture. Look at that action, the airborneness. I think we're balancing on one little hoof there with all the other three up in the air. This guy's hanging on for dear life. He's gripping. He's got the helmet on. He's got his arm outstretched. Really like the way that you can just barely see some people in the background there, but their heads have been sort of cropped off. So we're concentrating on our rider here. Maybe we could have aimed to throw in the background a little bit more, but. There's always 1,000 things that you can do in hindsight and whatever else. I think it's a great image. It stands out. Great use of a long lens. Great use of photographic technique with fast shutter speed to really freeze that action, and freezing the action and the right moment. Has done really well. So I hope the young fella came off okay at the end of it. Yeah, I really like this image. It's graphic and somewhat abstract, and it's a little bit sort of a little bit different. I like what the photographer's done here. I like the parallels and the thought process put into the positioning down here on the right. It's a really interesting building too, with all these little steps and so forth as well. Really interesting sky and the kind of movement of the clouds and so forth. A little bit of crunching with the pixels. There's a bit of pixelation in there, just something to be mindful of. And I'm in two minds about this little tree here. Have it in or have it out. It kind of works though. It kind of breaks up. Just adds a bit of interest. Maybe just to show a little bit more. It's a bit of a theme of what I've been talking about tonight. Having things either in or out, or a bit more and or less. But I don't really like to force my opinion so much. It's just sort of, I like to highlight things to maybe think about, and for the viewers, but also the photographer as well. The slither of stones down here in the foreground is certainly interesting as well. But the control of exposure from the highlights of the bricks here going into the darker areas is really nice, and that shows a good understanding of sort of the post-production process. Well done. All right, so I think I got a bit excited before. We have the honours section to finish off with the open monochrome section. So let's have a look here. Yeah, wonderful. This is really striking. I love the grandeur. I love the isolation and the nature and the power and all that kind of stuff. Unforgiving, beautiful landscape. The compositional elements here of this guy over here and this guy over here just frame it beautifully. I really like the bold and brave, adventurous slither of foreground. I think that actually compositionally works quite nicely. Our eye leads into the kind of the next sort of phase of the mountains here with different tones as well, obviously. Leading up to the snow peaks and caps and so forth, and then the low cloud and the drama and the interest in the sky as well. Really nice, really striking. Again, it would be nice to see how it would look as a print. I like the sort of more panoramic crop. I think that works quite well. Maybe some of the clouds are a bit sort of hot in spots, but I think, overall, it's a powerful image. I like the elements of thought process that have been put in by the photographer through composition and placement, and also the capture of nature and the glory of all that as well. Well done. And then going from nature to man-made. Look at the clarity in this photo. Beautiful, just so sharp all the way throughout. compositionally, spot on. We've really thought about, all the man-made elements here, and the balance and it all works really well. The placement of, I think, what looks like escalator. What do you call them? Things that go up and down. Elevators. 3 of them. 1, 2, 3. It works really nicely. But the photographers thought about, placement and composition and balance, which is what the architect and the builders and the engineers have done in the creation of this place. The tones from black to white and everything else in between is really, really spot on. Again, let's see it as a print. I think it would be it would print up beautifully, and it would take pride and place on a wall somewhere. The starburst of the lights is really interesting as well. Some people will love it. Some people will think, I'm not a fan of it. I think it works okay. I think it's fine. I think it's all part of this scene. Well done. Yeah, really like it. Shows lots of control photographically and in both, composition and the eye of the photographer, and then also, the post-production side of things as well. So, well done. All right, well, that brings us to the conclusion of my judging. Just got a few things I thought I'd mention. I think photography, for me at least, falls into somewhat of 2 categories. We either capture a moment or create a moment. And I think there's been some good examples throughout. I've just got a few samples of some of my work here that kind of fall into those 2 categories, I suppose. They're photos that I've taken. So capturing a moment, it's sort of being there, right place, right time, somewhat luck, somewhat planning, all that kind of thing. Just capturing those, amazing things that happen so fleetingly. When nature, puts on a show and so forth as well, and you really don't have huge amounts of time to react in some instances, and depending on, what you're photographing. Other times you have a little bit more time, but, again, you're creating a moment, and light in particular can be very, very fleeting, from the light in this instance falling on the hill, to the lack of light falling on these dark, stormy clouds in the background. I like this little guy here. To, again, sort of those moments that happen very quickly and just trying to capture, that movement and the joy in this instance here as well. And here is, these are actually I've only got 2 shots here that fall into that, create a moment. I actually set this image up. It's my son and his puppy dog. Where you're controlling all the elements, or as much as that, as you can. This is probably more of a, create the moment, through post-production, albeit, throughout the photographic process. All right, now I think I have, if my memory serves me well, oh no, here we go. Sorry, I'm jumping the gun here. Just a quick shout out, if I may. Although I've been judging for over 20 years, I recently, in the last few years at least, came across the APJA, which is the Australian Photographic Judges Association. So anyone within the club that is looking to maybe do some judging, they're a great organisation to be involved in. But they're also, they have courses. They have 6 stages of teaching, if you like, and a lot of it's actually just learning about different genres of photography, which as a judge you have to understand, particularly for open comps, all the different kinds of photography that's out there. Look, a wonderful organisation. Look them up and consider coming along, joining and doing some of the courses. This is a podcast that I'll listen to. I'm not sure if anyone within your club has come across this podcast. They're on Spotify and all the normal places that you can stream podcasts, but they also do have a YouTube channel as well, where their podcast is is a visual thing as well, is not just listening. So the guy on the left is Cam Blake, which I'm sure some of you would have known from Tassie. He's a landscape photographer based down in Hobart. And the guy on the right is Brendan Waits, who's based just near me down in Bowen Heads. Very light, not to be taken too seriously. They're a landscape podcast, so they talk mainly about landscapes. It's good. It's very light, easy listening. Here are my details. I've got an Instagram page. You can see my handle there. Feel free to have a look at some of my images. Email me if you like. If there's anything that you want to challenge me on throughout the judging process tonight, I'm sort of definitely open to any feedback. But I really enjoy photography in all its facets. As I said, I work professionally as a photographer. I judge. I love seeing images. I collect photographic books, all that kind of stuff. And throughout the judging process, I hope to somewhat engage you as a listener. And pass on, sort of my commentary, and hopefully somewhat educate and entertain in the process. I now have a audio visual, just a few minutes worth, that I will play you now. there you go. Thank you for watching. Thank you for not only watching my photos, but putting up with my commentary of your images throughout the evening. Thank you to both Sharon and David for helping me get to this stage, and helping me get to put this all together for you. Thank you. Good luck with all your photography in the future, and hope to see you in the future.